Hello, everyone. Welcome to TDWI's webinar program. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Linda Briggs. I'm a contributing editor here at TDWI, and I'll be your moderator. Our program today is Maximizing the Power of Data with Embedded Analytics. It's sponsored by Looker. And for our presentations today, first we'll hear from David Stoddard with TDWI, and then we have a presentation by Eric Kolb with Looker. Before I turn the stage over to Dave to get us started, let me go over just a few background items with the audience. First of all, today's webinar will be an hour long. At the end of the presentations, the speakers are going to host a question and answer period with the audience. So that's a great opportunity for you to get questions answered around this topic. I encourage you to send them in at any time during the webinar. Just type them in there on your console and send them over. We'll get to as many questions as we can toward the end of the hour. If you run into any technical issues, there is a help area there on your screen. You can click on that for assistance. If you're a Twitter user and you'd like to discuss the webinar with others, please include the hashtag TDWI in your tweets. Finally, for a copy of today's presentation, there is a line on your console to download a PDF immediately if you want to do that. In addition, as always, we're recording today's webinar, and we'll be emailing each of you a link to the archive so you can view the presentation again and listen to it, or share that link with colleagues if there's somebody who couldn't make it today. Okay, once again, our program today is Maximizing the Power of Data with Embedded Analytics. Our first speaker today is David Stoddard. Dave is a Senior Director of Research for Business Intelligence here at TDWI. As an analyst, writer, and researcher, Dave has provided thought leadership on key topics in BI, analytics, IT, and information management for over 2 decades. Previously, he headed up his own independent firm and served as Vice President and Research Director with Ventana Research. Dave was the founding Chief Editor of Intelligent Enterprise, a major publication and media site dedicated to the BI and data warehousing communities. He served as Editorial Director there for 9 years. With TDWI, Dave focuses on providing research-based insights and best practices for organizations implementing BI, analytics, performance management, and related technologies and methods. So Dave, welcome. Let me turn the stage over to you.
Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you to all who are joining us today, and thank you to Eric and to Looker for sponsoring this webinar. I think we've got a good one today. We're talking about maximizing the power of embedded analytics, and certainly this touches on and really focuses on quite a lot of topics that we see in our research as being very important. So what we'll be doing today, I'll be talking about, I'll open with some trends around that are impacting the direction of embedded analytics, some of the issues around increasing the potential of embedded analytics with cloud platforms and frameworks, which is really one of the big changes in this world of embedded analytics. And then talk about monetization, basically the idea of trying to use data and analytics for monetization purposes, and we'll get into that, you know, what can be done with employees and so forth, to turn it around into kind of productizing it. And then I'll conclude with some recommendations. As Linda mentioned, I have a poll question, and we'll hear from Looker, and then hear from you guys in the audience. So looking forward to that. So certainly think of questions along the way that you might want to ask us at the end, and we'll try to answer them. Okay, so I think that, you know, the big picture is digital transformation. That's kind of one of those buzzwords out there, but it's no denying the fact that data is being generated everywhere. We've sort of edge devices. We all are carrying around our mobile devices, and they're generating data about all kinds of things that we're, you know, our activities, our behavior, and then of course geolocation and security issues and things like that. So there's a lot of data generated there, and then organizations, you know, are increasingly devoting their computing to software as a service and also platform as a service and things like that, other cloud-based applications and data platforms and services. So there's a lot of data moving to the cloud, being generated in the cloud. And then the whole area of online customer behavior and consumer behavior, which stretches across multiple kinds of systems. It could be certainly social media kinds of systems, but also the numerous kinds of websites and marketing campaigns that are out there that customers and consumers may be interacting with. So a lot of different types of data being generated there. And so, you know, I don't think I'm speaking to the choir here. There's a lot of rich data out there that organizations would like to get to. And there's some frustrations about the separation between the standalone data warehousing, BI, analytics kind of platforms And then the business applications, the process applications, transaction-oriented applications, and other applications that are interfacing with customers and consumers, and sort of the divide there. So what we're really talking about here is trying to reduce that divide and bring it together so that organizations can reap faster value from all this data that the old model is kind of breaking down a bit because of the amount of data and the demand for it. And it's right in line with what we're seeing in terms of trends all across industries. And so I have a little graphic here that we have just about transforming insights. We see demand for intelligent data processing, so data processing itself, trying to embed intelligence and AI into it, automated model building for analytics, including natural language interfaces, so that's a little bit more easy for users to work with instead of having to go to a separate system. Transferring business processes, which is really a little more the focus of what we're talking about here. So again, lots of things going on in terms of embedding machine learning and other kinds of AI models into business processes. Proactive, a lot of activity around that, trying to make systems alive with kind of the ability to provide recommendations, predictive insights, things like that. So proactive alerting, proactive intervention, so automating that. And then transforming products. I mean, we see products out there, of course, the voice assistants, digital assistants, so talking machines, virtual assistants, and then systems that can respond, in that proactive way to situational awareness. So certainly the idea of embedding is right in line with what we're seeing in a lot of areas in the industry. So a lot of demand growing for intelligence inside processes, applications, cloud services, and devices. Because obviously we've been talking about embedded for quite some time, forever really, but we're seeing these things changing how demand is looking. And so there is, increased demand for data-intensive applications. So setting aside just those kind of movements towards embedding intelligence in things, just to have, from a user perspective, we're going to have more users interact with more data, and they're more dependent on data insights, because certainly as we begin to democratize business intelligence and analytics and have more users involved in it, particularly non-technical users, managers and personnel, including frontline personnel who are not versed in how to access data and so forth, and don't really have the time to do all the training and develop the skills to do it, this is becoming an issue in organizations. It's stressing the platforms. So there's a stress on traditional systems that demand kind of more of a standalone environment that requires a lot of training and expertise in using data. And then, as I mentioned, I think in the earlier slides, speed is a competitive advantage. Organizations want to be able to close the gap between the creation of the data and then its availability for analysis and visualization. This is becoming business critical, and particularly if you think of the kinds of users in terms of in operations and working with customers and working with web applications that are depending on data insights, and they're in a competitive environment. It's very important for them to receive that data or receive notice of data events much sooner than in many traditional architectures. And that's the issue. So by the time users can view the data in dashboards and be able to analyze the data, it's often too late to really have the maximum effect. And that's what we're really talking about here, is maximizing the power of with embedded analytics. So some of the top drivers that we see, and I think when we think about the types of users that are becoming part of the whole spectrum of users in organizations that are working with data and working with analytics, immediately it goes to the top is operational. So users in different operations throughout organizations, different business functions, subsidiaries around the globe that are now being asked to be more data-driven in their decision-making and be able to use data effectively to determine how they can make business processes more efficient, how, for example, customer interactions maybe could be more effective, business partner interactions, and so 74% of those in our research make that the top priority for their BI and analytics investment. And again, here, there's a great opportunity, as I'll be talking about, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, for embedded analytics in operations to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness, because, again, tightening it is much better than the kind of looser arrangement that most organizations are working with. Performance management, KPIs, metrics, that's often a way that organizations try to communicate objectives to operational users or other kinds of users around the organization using key performance indicators and other types of metrics to understand business performance, where they are now, if they're where they expected to be, what they could do to be better. These are key information for improving operational efficiency and effectiveness. And again, in many organizations, this is called kind of a standalone system where they have to move away from their business application environment and have to deal with the BI platform separately, or some sort of dashboard system separately, or if dashboards are embedded, they don't carry all the key KPIs or other metrics that they're looking for. So we see here that this is a top priority as well, 50%. And very close is reducing costs and improving profitability, which is often, the key focus in many kinds of parts of organizations and operations, and really throughout organizations, everyone's asked to do both those things: reduce costs and improve profitability. And so the better information they get, the more timely information decision makers can get there, the better it's going to be. And then we do see a lot of organizations looking at how to automate decisions and actions. So thinking back to the idea of embedding intelligence in systems, organizations are certainly very much looking at how they can take decisions that are routine or repeated decisions and figure out how they can automate them using software. And so a lot of these things are tending in the direction of improving the idea of embedding. So looking again just a little closer at the user experience, so self-service BI and analytics has been a dominant trend, and certainly is still something that we see organizations trying to pursue. Some have hit a wall, though, because, again, the inability to bring in those non-technical users, many of them who are using line of business applications, more point applications, and don't have the time or the skills or even sometimes the interest to dive in and really learn about BI and analytics to be able to, and accessing data and working with the data. And they want it more in an easier environment that fits with their subject matter expertise and their level of experience in working with data, which is often not high. So along with this, of course, the user-IT relationship is changing. Self-service is great for empowering users because users know better what they need. They often know the data. They can ask the right questions. It's often difficult for IT developers to understand what the users are looking for. So all that is for the good. But of course, IT increasingly needs to be looking at governance, performance, how they can balance this flexibility of the self-service environment with governance. And so this is playing out as well in the development and deployment of embedded systems as well, is how to create that correct balance, because if more sophisticated analytics are being provided inside applications, again, IT needs to be thinking about, well, how are we going to govern these and how are we going to enable that kind of flexibility that users need, but at the same time address the governance and performance and platform kind of needs. So all of this is important for meeting dynamic needs, and so this is certainly what organizations are really facing. They don't want to have their the feed in cement problem where they have so much data. It's great, but it actually buries them, and they're not able to make decisions in time with business needs. And so a lot of what's going on in our sector, of course, is around how do you support dynamic decision making? How do you address things that come up quickly? Maybe it could be something like a marketing campaign that is launching and they need some more analytics around it. But it also could be something that was unexpected in the marketplace, unexpected trend that they're seeing among suppliers or customers that need to be responded to quickly, and they can't wait until the usual process is done. So how do you meet dynamic needs? So again, a lot of embedded systems in earlier days were not really well equipped for that. They were too static or kind of simple, might have been reports or dashboards. And so this is a revolution that is having to occur in those kinds of embedded systems as well, is how to supply them with the kinds of data interaction capabilities, the visualization capabilities, the ability to bring systems up more quickly so that you can meet those dynamic business needs. And so trends we see, smarter, greater definitely, but also smarter use of automation, embedded functionality to again, make things quicker, make it easier for users. In-context recommendations, some of these using AI and machine learning behind the scenes to create those kind of predictive recommendations or understanding of patterns and providing that. But the key issue there is really in context, providing it in the context of the subject matter experts' business process, the kind of things that are important in their role and responsibility. And then integrated data preparation. Certainly, I've talked a lot about that in different webinars, how we're seeing the whole field of data preparation and data pipelines, what it takes from the process of collecting the data to transforming it and really preparing it properly so that users can work with it. Seeing this starting to tighten up integration with BI and analytics systems, this is important, again, to support self-service and help users get moving faster. So backing out a little bit, just the priority issues in this process of democratization and moving out to different kinds of non-technical users and embedding things into their business applications and business processes. Still, the three big things really are context. I mentioned a minute ago, in context recommendations. Well, context really across the board is very important as you move into business processes, because this is no longer a standalone system. We're talking about how can we personalize insights to ensure their relevance, to make sure the insights are actionable. Autonomy is very important. So make it easier for users, and I mentioned again before that they're seeing automation and embedded functionality aimed at this to actually make the self-service experience better so that users can do more in a self-service way, make it easier, so allow more independent kind of data interaction and querying. They're not having to go back to IT for everything because actually, obviously if you're democratizing, it's going to be more than IT can really work with in terms of the number of users and the different types of interests and questions they have and subject matter expertise that IT would have to ferret through. So it's important to provide that independent data interaction, make it easier, in a drag and drop kind of GUI environment to do that, certainly within the governance kind of parameters. And so this is important for, again, those dynamic, fast-moving operational decisions, which are so important to be able to address things and improve, cost issues and find opportunities for better margins and so forth at the operational level. And then, along with context autonomy is also trust and governance. As I mentioned, IT largely has been kind of in charge of that, but it really needs to be both a shared responsibility between business users and IT to govern sensitive data, which could be personal information of customers and consumers, but also could be intellectual property that the organization wants to protect, other kinds of sensitive data, depending on the industry and depending on regulations that are accorded to in different industries. So ensure that the best and most complete data, this is the other half of governance, is really the quality, the completeness, making sure it's enriched to the point where it's complete, and then meeting the governance requirements there. So those three things to be considering and keeping in mind and moving towards embedded. Okay, so let's talk about embedded, and to do with my very simple drawing here. There's lots of better artists out there in the webinar world, so this is probably not the best example, but what I'm just trying to convey here is that embedded sits between or sits inside, in some ways, both, in many cases, the data platform, which is supporting the embedded analytics and the visual data interaction capabilities, and then the business applications and services themselves, so trying to push it in there so that users don't have to go to a standalone. So tightening the integration between analytics and applications, not forcing users to go to a standalone BI environment to their tool, which is usually the case, sort of building up on that platform, the sort of vertical platform of analytics and BI. This is where taking that and moving as much as possible into the application itself. So, this has been around for a long time. The first stage, as I mentioned before, was more about embedding reports, reporting capabilities, dashboards, moving on to a little bit of more GUI kind of capability. And then now we're seeing more mature functionality that vendors are providing inside, so greater ability to do queries, to use search more effectively, to be able to interact with the data in terms of analytics, or as more and more users in the organization start thinking about building predictive models and trying to work with the data and look at different levels of the data, and particularly if they're looking at a dashboard and want to dive in and understand some of the metrics that they're taking a look at. In early stage embedded, that really wasn't possible. That was something where you had to go back to IT and try to develop something that they can work with. Now we're starting to see more of that kind of capability moving into the embedded systems. which is definitely a good trend. And so, thinking again about the non-technical users being able to, how they can receive analytic insights. How is that done? How do they, if they're not going to be actually building predictive models or working with analytics themselves, how can they receive those insights so that they're in context, as I mentioned before, that they're understandable, so they're actionable. So if they're built off a predictive model, what does this mean for their particular area of interest, their responsibility, their business process? And then, so the ability to perform self-service analytics is through that query and search capability and so forth. So that's the obviously very broad idea of what it is all about. And looking at our research, we can see different things that people are trying to do, and the most common is really the traditional and what's been around for a while is in dashboards. And so here we ask what kinds of embedded analytics are making use of today, and analytics embedded in dashboards was number at the top, 43%. But some other areas here, analytics embedded in operational systems. So as I mentioned before, the importance of trying to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness, we see 23% are doing that. They're moving it into operational systems. And then some other areas embedded in business process management. Sometimes this is a specialized area of process management tools and applications and project management systems that are around business process. And so trying to move analytics and visualization capabilities into those so that it's less funky for users of those business process management systems to be able to work with data and see what's actually going on and get awareness of what the data is telling them and how business processes might need to be altered. Analytics embedded in externally facing websites and portals, just 14% here, but we're certainly going to see that grow. We'll talk about in a minute, the idea of monetizing and productizing analytics and data, see more of that potential there, both for working with business partners and even with customers, so externally facing. And then embedded in mobile applications, this is going to be important going forward as more BI and analytics is done on mobile systems. Right now it's sort of a lower percentage, but again, I think as organizations get more comfortable with that and with all the performance and security and so forth around it, this could grow. And the analytics embedded in point applications, so a little bit more. I mean, here I think it's just the statistics of our survey showing, we can probably blend that in with the operational systems that are often similar. And of course, 34% are not doing any of this, so I think we'll see that change over time as well. So one of the reasons it's going to change is because of the cloud, because cloud is making it much easier and really changing the game with embedded analytics. And I think this is something we'll be hearing more and more about, both in this webinar and I think more broadly, is so thinking about the cloud analytics is tackling much more scalable, elastic platforms, so addressing those kind of dynamic business needs. This is certainly what cloud can be all about for organizations if done well. And so without this on-premises investment that's necessary. And certainly in our research, we're seeing more and more organizations moving certainly newer systems into the cloud. As I write here, growing fast, cloud analytics becoming a first choice for new use cases. So even in established organizations that have established on-premises systems, they're looking at building new, and particularly around analytics, often to take advantage of the data gravity, the gravity being that lots of the data already in the cloud, so they want to move analytics to the cloud and take advantage of, as I mentioned here, one technology using in-database processing. So we've got powerful platforms out there. Why not use them effectively for churning through analytics and even for data preparation, ETL or ELT kind of activities to support analytics? So we see a lot of trending towards that, being able to use the parallel processing and more powerful platforms in the cloud for this. And then the other thing to mention about cloud, of course, is it's not one cloud, but many clouds, multi-cloud. So we see most organizations are, the big ones, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, but certainly even others. A multi-cloud stance. Sometimes it just worked out that way, that they're moved into the cloud. Different parts of the organization have moved to different cloud systems, or it's by design because they want to avoid vendor lock-in and platform lock-in and have some flexibility there. And so this is certainly a feature of the cloud these days, is a necessity of having analytics be able to be portable and going to solutions that can support multiple different clouds, so not just one, but certainly the big ones out there, if not others as they come along. So take advantage of the cloud infrastructure, and here I'm kind of grouping in together what's going on really. Whoops, just lost my screen for a second here. Going into the development world, which is certainly changing quite a bit around cloud, and so this is around the use of embedded systems, or rather embedded analytics around API, containers, and virtualization, and really moving into this kind of more virtual world around using microservices and Kubernetes, things like that for managing and orchestrating the use of containers. And so we're starting to see embedded systems begin to make use of that in the cloud. So first we're talking about really just the cloud platform impact and why that's important in terms of the power and the scalability and the dynamism. But now we're looking at how these applications are constructed and how they're put together and interact with each other. And so this is a whole world, obviously, that's changing quite a bit in the development of these systems. And so use of APIs, that's in some ways been around forever with service-oriented architectures and client-server computing, but now using more standard systems around JavaScript and REST and so forth to enable these systems to come together, for even data to be able to flow between them more easily, to improve the containerization, basically, of features and functionality that can now be more easily kind of put together and integrated and as sort of as components to create the embedded analytics. So this is a very important development in analytics. Using the APIs, containers, using a more virtualized kind of idea around containers, and then use of standards, very important, so that it's easy to plug in different functionality that you need. And then the other thing about the cloud is also being able to control releases and upgrades. We certainly are seeing that with commercial software vendors, but there's no reason why organizations themselves, as they manage embedded analytics, couldn't be doing the same and being able to do it more effectively from a centralized posture rather than having to go to each individual embedded system, which is, takes a tremendous amount of time and effort from an IT standpoint. So it's great for third-party developers, which has often been the way that embedded systems have been developed, is that third-party developers developing around a particular expertise, a subject matter expertise, or a business process. Well, there's increasing demand for those kinds of third-party systems to have intelligence inside, to have the kind of use of data that's effective through dashboards, through drag-and-drop visual interfaces to provide access to different types of data than may have been in traditional embedded systems, to have more, in other words, more breadth around the data. So this is important for these kinds of systems of insight that are beginning to develop, another kind of term of art out there, as opposed to more systems of record and business, more transactional systems, certainly growing around business analytics and BI and so forth to build out these systems that different types of users can use, as we've been talking about here, to make good use of data, to bring data in, have data-driven decision-making, be able to collaborate on data, to use things like data storytelling to explain what they're seeing and maybe in a predictive trend that they can build predictions off of, and then recommendations for different kinds of actions to improve processes or operations. So to be able to plug these in, use that kind of cloud development infrastructure I was talking about is very valuable and important. So using open APIs, callable microservices, using standards instead of just specialized APIs or specialized connectors to use standards effectively can improve connectivity, enable easier data flow between them, and allow for more customizable functionality. And so through this way, can easily serve third-party developers' customers' needs for expanding data interaction and increasing flexibility. And then also, as I mentioned, different points in the workflows. Often a frustration users had with embedded systems was that there's, it could invoke an embedded report and maybe in one point, but they really need that capability at another point in the business process workflow. Can they provide it there? So this is another thing with this kind of more easier connectivity and customizable functionality, enabling analytics to be contributing at different points in a workflow or in a business process. But not just third-party developers. I think there's an important point here is that because of the cloud, really, and cloud-based capabilities, it's no longer just the realm of third-party developers, but organizations themselves can now look at how they can create applications and services for their customers, for their partners, and for their employees to make it easier for everyone to interact, collaborate, and be productive. So there's a lot of potential here, and this is where organizations are looking at the potential for things like monetizing the data and analytics, which is really around productizing data flows or productizing certain kinds of analytics for external partners or customers or consumers. And then also, but I think it's important to make the point that take that same idea and think about how different employees in the organization, particularly in larger organizations that have different types of employees, might be served by a similar idea. You know, the cost of those systems and who pays for it can be worked out actually in sort of an economic way as well, but we won't get into that here. But there's obviously a lot of options there in terms of how an organization might productize it for internal employees or different subsidiaries around and how it gets paid for. That's you know, compelling to be able to use some of these economic models that work on the outside to be able to use them on the inside as well. But in general, what I'm just talking about here is that they can use the same idea of trying to figure out, you know, innovate by productizing data and analytics for these different kinds of either external or internal users. And then with, you know, keeping in mind the three things that are important, and one being governance. This way, the importance of being able to build them according to internal governance and data management standards. And I think the use of standardized APIs, connectivity, and so forth is a big part of that, because then you can begin to plug in, you know, knowledge of the data through data catalogs, being able to understand data lineage, be able to track that across, you know, vast use of embedded systems. So, embedding analytics and data access for customers and employees. Just to think of some examples here. So these are examples of where they could be monetized, and we see this in our research. Often these are, I think most of these are actually drawn from our best practices reports that we've seen. So financial services, embedded client dashboards. I mean, this is something that is very helpful in financial services. I mean, probably a lot of us who are maybe clients of financial services get these kind of dashboards, and they're useful. And so we're starting to see increasing use of this with analytics embedded in them. So either delivery of more analytics, more depth around analytics, more interesting insights, or giving users themselves the capability of developing their own analytics. And so behind the scenes, IT can work, it can serve up the analytics, can work with the customers on that basis without having to necessarily expose the data behind the scenes. So we see this kind of thing is popular in financial services and also in other industries as well. Sales and support, pipeline forecast views based on multiple customer data sources. We see analysts here trying to recommend, or using analytics to recommend actions. And this is the kind of thing that obviously would be valuable internally as it would be with business partners and so forth, to be able to provide much smarter insights into what customers are doing, different trends, and so forth. And so again, the ability to package up data that an organization is getting from different customer behavior sources and building it into an analytics that can be delivered. Inventory and supply chain, you know, self-service partner access to supplies and process status. Real time is very important in this area, so that organizations can see where things stand, if at least, you know, if not true real time, near real time in inventory and supply chain, so they can spot problems quickly and address them. Again, something that could be very important in partner networks, which are common in inventory and supply chain. And then help desk, call centers, things we're interacting with customers that way to provide better insights at the point of decision. So when you've got somebody representative on the line or working either internally at a help desk, do they have the information both about the customer or employee's situation to be effective, and then can they bring in an understanding of where maybe problems have been that seeing trends and problems, maybe warranty issues that are coming up, things like that. So better information there. A lot of us, you know, thinking back again to operations, so enriching operational insight or operational performance management with embedded insight should be really a key focus, and maybe the number one focus thinking about it. So KPIs and metrics, often these are kind of two there's no depth to them and when users are working with them. And so to provide rich contextual analytics within the apps so they can make more informed decisions would be very valuable, and allow users and managers in operations in particular to have a better sense of what they need to do to improve processes or improve things, cost effectiveness and things like that. So giving them the ability to do better what-if analysis, more data exploration around and behind the KPIs and metrics, and then using systems to provide the smart alerts, recommendations based on predictive understandings possibly, but other event notification, things that are happening that a user might need to be aware of can be very valuable. Visualization, so making it easier, so enabling new perspectives on integrated data. And then another example here, financial services are embedding in visual metrics in apps to align agents' decisions with objectives. So before talking about use of in financial services for customers, but this is really for agents who could certainly use more effective information and being able to stay within corporate objectives, so which is the key idea around performance management. And then another would be we're seeing an increasing use of this for internal regulatory adherence. So regulations are becoming onerous and difficult to apply in many cases, and so being able to use embedded analytics and embedded visualization to make sure that users are aware of regulations and what it means in terms of their business processes. They can monitor potential risk, so understand where there could be risk in their processes or in the customer interactions, and then they keep making it part of the process, not a bottleneck where they're going to a separate system to understand this. Okay, so I'm going to close with some quick recommendations based on what I've been talking about here. So number one is to aim for agility, scalability, and power. So we've got the cloud now, and so it makes it easier for organizations to begin to address those needs for agility, to dynamic business, use that scalability of the cloud to bring in the power of more powerful analytics. So it's a modern approach to embedded analytics, using cloud capabilities and being able to use the kind of cloud development architecture I mentioned to personalize experiences so it's not a one-size-fits-all anymore, but you can begin to kind of pull together and integrate different components and microservices to provide a better personalized experience, and it's still with the self-service idea. Increased depth and breadth of the analytics, again, using the cloud, the power of it to exploit for performance and dynamic scalability across different amounts or volumes of data, different types of data, and use it as well, of course, to shorten time to value, to deliver those insights faster, closer to the time that the data was recorded, and so forth. So innovate for business potential. This is, again, looking for ways to productize, monetize, and how this could be done to improve both internal operations and also look at external things that or users need. So address ways to improve operations, to deliver context-sensitive insights, and then empower non-technical users, thinking about the democratization and the different types of users who are going to need different types of analytics, and modern embedded analytics to create revenue and service opportunities there. So I think we've kind of gone through here where partners and customers can benefit from the data and data-rich services, but don't forget to think about employees who can certainly benefit from data-savvy employees could benefit from better applications that can serve their kinds of processes, internal processes, and efforts to be cost-effective and so forth. Okay, well, thank you very much. Linda, I think we're going to do a poll question before we turn over to Looker. So our audience, asking which of the following is your biggest challenge in trying to maximize the power of data with embedded analytics? So is it providing the right analytics and visualization functionality to users and training them to take advantage of it? So just really trying to get the right analytics out there. Or is it around data, around integrating data and enabling data access from the embedded BI analytics? So issues there around data flow, the data pipelines to support the embedded analytics. Is that the biggest challenge? Or is the biggest challenge orienting our use of cloud platforms and development frameworks to support embedded analytics? So maybe organizations are moving into the cloud but haven't really thought about how it could be used to support embedded analytics, and so the issue of trying to align it with that objective. Or it could be identifying revenue potential of embedded analytics and getting management support. So the area of monetization, productization, having to get the organization to think more creatively and innovatively about that. And then finally, it could be around governance and data quality concerns. All right, so let's take a look and see what the results are. Okay, the top one is 44% saying providing the right analytics and visualization functionality to users and training them to take advantage of it. So just trying to identify the opportunities for the kinds of analytics, what would work with their applications in the context that they need. Yeah, that makes sense. But we do see 22% having issues around the data, which we do see in our research, and then governance concerns. Yep. Certainly governance concerns is an issue when organizations are using data both internally and externally. So, but I think we're seeing organizations begin to work that out and solutions providing better means of it. Okay, Linda, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Quick reminder to the audience, if you have a question for Dave or our next speaker from Looker, go ahead and type it in, send it over, and we'll get to those toward the end of the hour. On that note, please welcome our next speaker, Eric Kolb, who is Senior Product Marketing Manager for Looker. Eric has worked in various product and marketing roles for the high-tech industry in California. At Looker, he focuses on growing the data platform and its value and usage. Prior to Looker, Eric founded and led 2 technology startups, invested in early-stage companies as a venture capitalist, worked on Google Search and Maps, and learned all about startups at Box. So welcome, Eric. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I appreciate everyone joining from all around the world today. Today, I'm going to be running through a little bit about Looker for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to leave some time for questions at the end. So really appreciate David for the great context of the broader industry view, and now we'll paint a quick picture of where Looker fits. So Looker really is a platform for people who want to build data products and monetize their data. So very quickly, if you're new to Looker, our mission has always been to empower people through the smarter use of data. And we've done this, and it's evolved over the years as we've helped different companies, and a lot of people have joined our mission. A lot of customers have joined our mission over the years too. And the need for better customer experiences has been the catalyst for digital transformation at enterprise, and Looker's ability to deliver that data accurately into any workflow has made it the go-to choice for many companies. So very quickly, why are we relevant? Growth is a top priority, and you've heard this before for technology leaders. Gartner surveyed over 3,000 technology leaders in 2018, and they found that they're taking more strategic role responsibilities, and growth is their top priority. They're tasked with increasing revenue, decreasing costs, and increasing customer competitiveness. And to achieve that growth, it's critical to invest strategically on your core competency and buy or outsource everything else. And that lets you get the best of breed tech stack and SaaS ecosystem that you need while maintaining a high return on your engineering effort. Looker offers embedded analytics to its customers, and our customers use it to monetize their data and increase user engagement. And the visual elements of embedding are immediately important, obvious and definitely important. It's how the user experiences your product and how they'll interpret your brand. It's also the first thing you see as you experience with the product, and it's very high stakes to get it right. But that's also the easier part. Our customers choose Looker because they know that building analytics is different than building typical UI and UX development. There's a whole lot going on under the surface, and it's the complex technologies powering what you see that are the hardest and most important parts of embedding analytics. And this is where Looker really stands out. Other tools are architected for old technologies, and they break and require large teams, struggle to perform at scale, and lack basic capabilities that users expect. Whereas Looker is a modern platform and was architected from the beginning for the modern world of faster technologies, which lets you build efficiently with a lean, agile development team, rapidly iterate to drive product market fit and growth, and deliver high-quality, differentiated premium experiences that you can monetize. So how does Looker actually deliver on all that? Let's drill down to some of the product builder's goals. You want to build products efficiently using the tools you love. You want to grow and scale your product rapidly and cheaply over time. And you want to deliver high-quality experiences to your customers, again, to monetize. Well, Looker is really the first modern analytics platform that lets developers use the modern Git software development workflows and tools that they love. And the secret sauce behind it is a code-based modeling language that lets you collaborate better on the same project, ship quality code and reliable releases, and roll back any changes and ensure product continuity in that way. Looker also lets you grow quickly and improve your product over time, and it scales up with predictable performance and pricing. So as you grow your customer base, and you get to maintain your model in one place and have changes update everywhere automatically, rather than updating one by one all the extracts or the workbooks. And now you can also rapidly and cheaply add new use cases for your different personas or user types by taking advantage of the same source of truth and all the security and user provisioning already baked in. And that's allowed customers like Collective, which you see a screenshot of here, deliver and rapidly prototype new experiences and go from worst to first in their category in their analytics product offering in 1 year. And then not only win their category, but expand into new markets, adjacent markets by rapidly prototyping and quickly getting into good product market fit. And finally, Looker is, because of its architecture, Looker always delivers best-in-class quality for embedded analytics with a reliable data that's always accurate and fresh. That's our in-database architecture. And so you get peace of mind because the data never leaves the database. It's always accurate and fresh, like I said. The architecture also allows customers to ask further questions of their data in a self-serve manner. And meanwhile, you save your account management team and support team hours of work that used to be spent fielding ad hoc data requests. And if Count is one example, and there are many of them, that are using the deep and rich functionality that Looker provides to monetize and get people to upgrade to higher plans in their offering. And we get this question a lot. I want to monetize my data. How do I actually go about and do it? So one common framework that we're seeing among our customers is, especially the ones delivering SaaS products, is chunking out capabilities into a good, better, and best framework with increasing levels of price, and really driving upgrades strategically by taking the functionality and making sure that your customers are paying for the value that they're getting. So this is just one way to do that. When we have a lot of customers embedding Looker, I won't go through them all right now, but I'll quickly focus on Namely. Namely is one of our customers who have leveraged their data to fuel growth. And it's just one example, but they're a growth stage HR software company, and to compete upmarket against incumbents like Workday and ADP, they realized that they needed to leverage their data better. So with Looker, Namely provided analytics as a product to their customers. And when they did this, it fueled growth and created new value streams for them very quickly. Looker is also loved by our customers. I won't get into the details, but we get highest rated vendor accolades and a number of reports. And if you want a quick overview of what makes us different, here's, I won't read through this all, but it really comes back to our modern platform, our extremely high-scale in-database architecture, the Git data modeling, Git version data modeling, full customization abilities, APIs, SDKs for easier development and faster development, and again, with that single source of truth, the ability to minimize maintenance costs as you need to change and adapt your product over time and as you scale to new customers in use cases. So again, Looker's platform, just very quickly, delivers a bunch of different things. Oops, sorry about that. And what we're seeing is that you get a complete view of all your data. You have a unified understanding of all your data and metrics, and you're able to deliver that in a bunch of different ways. And we're seeing the most interesting activity around how people are building with Looker. We have a very active developer community, and they're building throughout our technology stack ways to deliver data better to those systems of insight that David was talking about. So with that, I will just leave you with some of the benefits that people realize. A lot of these are business benefits around creating new revenue streams, reducing costs, reducing risk and churn with higher product engagement, and all doing that with a very agile development process, and the ability to drive a lot of product market fit and growth. If you're excited to learn more in person, we have this annual conference called Join, and it's taking place in November. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit looker.com/join for anything. All the details. There's a bunch of information around what speakers we have, what sessions they're going to be talking about, and we'll have a lot of great content there for a few days. And for the hackers among you, we also have a hackathon and a whole developer experience. So you get to interact with the technical experts here, some of our software engineers, our solutions architects, the people who can teach you in person how to build most efficiently with Looker. We have all the technology partners here, and the idea is, over the course of a few days, to really give you the tools that you need and the resources you need to learn and develop your experiences more efficiently. So with that, I will hand it back, and if you have any questions around Looker or embedded analytics, we'd love to hear them.
That's great. Thanks very much, Eric. Let's move into our question and answer period. Let me put this screen with links up on the screen for a minute, and let's go into some questions. I'm going to start with a question for Dave, and then Eric, I have some Looker-specific questions that I see here in the queue. Dave, let's start with this one. We're debating building, sorry, wrong question. That's not the one I wanted to start with. Our upper management is interested in monetizing analytics, but IT management isn't sure if it's prepared to support external users. Do you have some advice on how to get IT on board in a situation like that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good issue there, because I think often we'll fall to IT management to support these. So I think it's, obviously the thing to do is to hear IT out and understand their concerns, which could revolve around governance and supporting the performance and the different kind of user customization that maybe may come up as analytics are spread out to certainly external partners and customers and so forth. And then begin to think about how to build that layer that we're seeing in a lot of successful monetization efforts, that some of them I mentioned, where rather than opening the access to everything, it's basically at a layer that's protected, that's well governed, so that the data that external users get to is the data that's relevant to what they're doing, and is the proper data for them. And so cloud architectures can be very helpful in this to sort of create that kind of a system in the cloud, and then build the analytics off of that. So that's what I'd say. Yeah, look at IT's concerns, but IT often finds itself having to say no, and so often IT gets a reputation for saying no. So I think it's important for also IT to be thinking about how the organization can innovate, and particularly in our data-rich, kind of data-driven age, be thinking about how analytics could be monetized and data be used as in a productized kind of way.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks. Let's see. Let me go to Eric with a couple of these Looker questions. Eric, how do customers use Looker for workflow automation?
It's a great question. Some of the ways that people automate workflows are, like you heard, reducing account management costs, making sure that individuals can self-serve, your customers can self-serve on the data that they need and explore and ask questions of the data. There are other ways that people are using Looker without even a front end, and they're delivering these automated workflows. There's one customer of ours in the gaming industry that has built a completely automated workflow around bid optimization, so that's BidBot. And what they do is they basically have a predictive model. They prepare data for that predictive model in Looker. They get the model outputs, write them back to the database, and then compare the bid performance with their expected performance and optimized performance, and integrate with their ad platforms to change the bid on the fly in real time without any human intervention. So fully closed loop, improved granularity and visibility into ad spend, but also the ability to improve ROI of that marketing spend. So increased revenue and increased downloads significantly. So it's one way to take advantage of the platform that's a little beyond productizing analytics. It really is thinking about the ways that you can infuse your other workflows with data and automate them.
How about this one, Eric? You talked about this a little in your presentation. What makes Looker unique technically?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a few key technology pillars. It's our in-database architecture. It's our semantic modeling layer, that Git version controlled modeling layer I mentioned before, and really it's our APIs for data. We are with the governance that we provide with our LookML modeling layer. You can access Looker and your data programmatically in a way that you haven't been able to do before. And that unlocks a whole bunch of near real-time use cases at petabyte scale. It really comes down to the architecture and the governance and the modern APIs for data. And we're continually investing in our SDKs and development tools so that developers can go further faster.
Here's a very specific question. How are financial services organizations using Looker to productize data?
Yeah, it's actually one of our most exciting verticals, the need for secure data. There are a couple examples that come immediately to mind. There's this one well-known investment bank in the U.S. who's using us to build a completely custom application for their risk portfolio analysts, portfolio risk analysts. These quantitative folks are trying to figure out how they can better mitigate risk, but they want to be able to toggle visualizations and understand, customize filters and interact with a product in a very custom way that Looker doesn't provide out of the box. So they built this really custom application in their secure environment, taking advantage of our database architecture and our APIs data, and built a really powerful application experience, and have saved, I think it was $2 million annually on development costs in doing so. So there's some really cool functionalities that you can do productizing analytics, not only externally to your end users of your products and the new markets that you want to go after, but also internally to the people who demand a modern web application experience to complete their jobs. So we're seeing a lot of different interesting use cases.
Interesting. How about this? We'll try to squeeze in one last one here, Eric. We're debating building embedded analytics in-house. Do you have any guidance for how to decide on that? Yeah,
we have a lot of great white papers and resources available on info.looker.com. We have one white paper specifically for monetizing analytics and the strategic thinking behind it, but there's more for considering whether to build versus buy. The solutions, building in-house is often very compelling because you have control, but oftentimes people focus on the short term and they don't really forecast the long-term cost of building. And so we have a blog post. If you Google build versus buy Looker, there's a blog post I wrote about it actually. But there's another white paper where if you're further in the consideration stages of what tool to buy, we have a white paper on common considerations that a lot of our customers find helpful. So info.looker.com for all that.
That's great.
Yep, exactly there.
There's that link up on the screen for everybody. All right. On that note, we're just about out of time. Thank you, Eric. Also, thank you, Dave Stoddard with TDWI. That was Eric Kolb with Looker joining us today. And also, we want to thank Looker again for sponsoring today's presentation. I want to remind everyone that we did record it. We'll be sending each of you a link to the archive so you can review it or send that link on to colleagues who may not have been able to make it today. And finally, I want to remind everyone that TDWI offers a wealth of information, including the latest research, reports, webinars, and information on business intelligence, data warehousing, and a host of related topics. I encourage you to tap into all of that expertise. It's at tdwi.org. And on that note, from all of us here today, thank you very much for attending. This concludes today's event.